like 5 more seconds than needed.
Well, I've been impressed with the new rotation of Alex Jones clips that have been inserted recently.
I've been trying to filter.
There's some good ones in there.
You got to rotate in. I can't. I try to filter them in every now and again.
So
bringing the new out with the bad.
Sam, are you on the road?
Am I popping too much? Pop.
No, you're good.
So I think we should have a limit, because we're gonna have a lot of people, I think, on today. So I think it's important that everybody. Hey, there he is, Ricky.
What's up?
Is John joining us? Fitch?
No, Fitch has got to do something.
Yeah, he just told us that he had some stuff to do, but I told him congrats on great career. He just retired. What a crazy fucking day I just had. This whole day's been like, it's Mondays, man. It's like nonstop, balls to the wall. I did interview, then it ran long, forgot that I had soccer practice. Then we went to soccer practice with the kids. And then there was one coach who didn't realize that my kid had a medical exemption for the mask, gave him a hard time. So he started crying. And so then I had to clear that up. And he's like, I don't want to wear a mask. He's like, it makes me sick. Because that's what I told him to say, that it makes him sick. Good. And,
tell the coach that your kid used to do a lot of coke and he has a deviated septum.
That works.
Yeah, that works. He's sick, so I think it's believable. And and then I got home and I'm running late, and then I have no internet. And I lost internet this afternoon when my wife was home, but it came back, so I didn't think much of it. And all of a sudden I have like no internet, so I was emailing people just now on my hotspot phone. So I'm hoping this internet comes so I don't have to rely on my phone as a hotspot.
So interesting, dude. Like, I was on the road. I was doing
Sorry, I didn't mean.
I was doing a podcast. I was like uploading all these videos, and they would just upload like this. As soon as I come home, it's like 40 minutes, hour to upload. Twitter took down all my backup Twitter's accounts that I wasn't even using.
Twitter got rid of those for you? That's nice of them.
They said they're all banned. This one's been banned. This one's been banned.
You are. They get it. They know.
I know they know, but I know. But that's crazy. That like even accounts I don't even use.
I think with Twitter, the key is you need to designate yourself as a pedophile on Twitter. Then they're guaranteed to leave you alone. They won't mess with you at all. You have the right to do whatever you want.
That's for sure. How about these fucking degenerates coming out there and defending like this pedophile show?
Well, there's so many edgelords, especially from comedy, and they're all like, it's just unbelievable watching these really funny people think it's edgy.
Oh, well,
that cuties is edgy?
Yes.
No, that defending cuties is like, look how dangerous I am.
How about we go live? Let's do that.
Oh, real quick before we start, I think everybody, if there's an email or something like that, should send each other what you want listed in when each one of us posts, like the link. So if someone's like something, if they like what you said, they can find you. It takes forever to find everybody. So like send in one email, send it to Ricky or something. Send us your website, your podcast, and whatever social media like, so we can post it for you in the description. The second thing is, due to the fact that so many people are jumping on this, it's very important that your shares be shorter, like minute, 2 minutes at the most, because it's just there's so many people who want to talk. We got to kind of turn and burn on everybody, okay? So that's really it. And hey, man, these are at least on my channel. These shows keep getting more and more and more traction. And we lost Jason Burr. Oh, there Jason is. I forgot. And Ricky's back. So whenever you guys want to start, Mike.
Let's do it. We're going to go live.
Quarantine coming?
Yeah, he said he's running late.
Okay.
Did you lose your Twitter page, Sam?
Yeah, I lost my original Twitter page, and then I lost my 2 backup Twitter pages.
You still got your Ronin one, though, right, Sam?
What?
You still got your Ronin one, right?
Yeah, the Ronin's there, but Sam Tripoli and then Sammy Buddha, both gone.
Okay. Yeah, boy.
My original is gone, too. They kicked me off in February for jokingly suggesting we throw Bill Gates into a volcano. I thought it was reasonable. fucking shit.
Oops, sorry.
On the show.
Hey, we are live. Union of the Unwanted. Ricky, I guess you have technical problems, but take it away. Oh, Ricky. Ricky's mute.
You're muted. You're muted. There you are. Now you're muted again.
Yeah, you're muted again. This is
there
great.
There you go.
Maybe he's believing himself.
I can't.
Now it's not his mic. He's not muted, but his mic's not working.
Okay.
That's all real.
You got too close to the truth, bro.
Wow. Technical difficulties indeed.
The Union of the Unwanted. Ricky, are you back with us?
Not yet.
Yeah, you are.
There you are.
There you are.
You can hear me?
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
What? Okay. That's great. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't know what happened, but this is going to be
the Barry White of conspiracies. We can hear you.
Yeah. Well, everybody, another Union of the Unwanted. This is one of those very popular. It seems to be getting a lot of attention. Swapcast with researchers, people in the alternative media world, people, just different people with different perspectives, bring them together, hoping to provoke interesting conversations. So I think people have found these shows very refreshing, because one thing that has been awesome is that many of us have slightly different opinions, but we're all open to talking about them and just also sharing what's going on in our neck of the woods. And we've been able to connect with people from all over the world. One of our special guests today, which I'm very excited to have on with us today, is Pete Evans, somebody I just had an awesome 2-hour discussion with some weeks ago. And he's in Australia, which is a very hot spot at the moment. A lot of people are talking about Australia and New Zealand, and he brought up a lot of the stuff that's going on now on my show before it started happening, and he was saying it was going to get worse. So let's get Pete in this conversation early, also to also give me some time to stop sounding so flustered.
G'day everyone, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi.
Perfect. Just even today, this morning, what's happened in Victoria, I just shared it on my social media pages. And basically what they've stipulated is that they've done lockdown or implemented lockdown for another month as of last night. And this is going to go on for 6 months minimum, I believe. Every month they can extend it. So they've got a state of emergency or state of disaster. I mean, the definition of what those terms are keeps changing. And I'll just read you exactly what they wrote into the article today, because it's pretty telling. So they said, people suspected by health authorities of being likely to spread the virus if they are COVID positive or a close contact of an infected person could be forcibly detained if the bill is passed. The rules confirmed by this newspaper could be applied to conspiracy theorists who refuse to self-isolate, or severely drug-affected or mentally impaired people who do not have the capacity to quarantine. Those caught under the new rules could be detained in places where they could be monitored, such as hotels. The bill proposes the new powers the government says will strengthen the state's pandemic response, including broadening the types of government employees who can act as authorised officers. The state of emergency and state of disaster, which were extended last night for another 4 weeks, enables the officers to be able to restrict movement, search premises without a warrant, and give other directions that are deemed necessary to protect public health. So, yeah, I mean, you can read into that whatever you like. I mean, but basically, they're going to be hiring new people to be able to be these officers that can come into your home without a warrant, can detain you in a location not specified, and indefinitely. Even if you do not have the virus, but somebody you know may have it. Like, I've been saying this for the last 3 or 4 months, that Victoria will be the first to fall, and then New Zealand, for I believe what they've sold off on the Belt Road project. So it's pretty frightening. But then I'm in New South Wales, which is, over an imaginary border, with my family, and it's like COVID doesn't really exist here. It's bizarre.
Who's running where you are? Who's in charge over there? Is it the UN?
China is involved. in Israel.
Yeah, Max Egan was on my show, and he was talking about how there was this slow kind of Chinese purge going over there. Not purge, but this kind of reach for a very long time, and that the fires had a lot to do with the fact that the Chinese were taking a lot of the water over there.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of super sad because, I've been to Australia doing comedy. It's wonderful, wonderful country. And it's just so sad to see people just, and I just like I'll end here, but the cop, like, what are the cops thinking? Like, what are these cops? We're in this kind of conflict in the United States where it's like Blue Lives Matter and we're very supportive of blue lives. But then we see like the history of law enforcement. And it's very much when the government wants to come and crack skulls, they send it in the form of riot police. So, these cops that are in Australia, like, what do they think's going to happen? Like, they're going to lock this down and then they're going to be treated different than their fellow citizens. Their children aren't going to be treated under this incredible 1984 draconian fucking censorship and anti-privacy laws. I mean, that's
the same thing that happened with the Jews in Germany. There were Jews, there were rabbis that gave out their lists of their congregants and thinking that they would, people can, I don't care what people think, it's true. And thinking that they would be saved. No, they were just the last to go. How I feel about what's going on with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Who do they think that they matter? They're throwaways. The real people running this. That's why I asked who's running where you are. Is it the UN? Because that's what scares me.
There's a really interesting thing that's just surfaced over the last week. It's called the Smart Cities, and Victoria has signed on to the Smart Cities.
There you go.
Group. And then once you dig into that, you'll sort of start to see it. But the interesting thing is, they've had protests in Sydney and they've asked me, Melbourne and Sydney and different states. Not many people are turning up because in Victoria, for instance, they're getting what's called JobKeeper. So the government is giving the employees that can't go to work basically a paid holiday. And I don't want to generalize it like that, but they're getting paid to not go to work. So the population, if I can generalize, is quite comfortable getting that money. Now, it's the business owners which are hurting, but they're sort of a small percentage because the population are the sort of the nuts and bolts, but they're getting paid. So I've spoken to a lot of business owners. I've spoken to a lot of people that are laid off, and they said they're not really suffering. It seems like it is from the external, but actually in there, they've got restrictions on them, but it's still, they're getting paid. A lot of them are getting paid. So they haven't gone to that point where it's painful yet. And you know what it's like being a human being. When we suffer enough pain, that's usually when we make a change or we make a stand, whether it be for our health or for the environment or whatever it may be. And I think the government is playing it very smart by giving them enough money without having to work so that they're subdued. And all of these laws are starting to come into place. So it's when you can see what's happening, it's frightening. But when I share, we've got nearly 2 million people on social media. And for anybody that isn't aware, I used to host Australia's #1 TV show for 11 years. A version of MasterChef, let's put it that way, a reality cooking show, which was on commercial television. And I've been talking about diet and lifestyle for the last 10 years and being slammed by the media. And so we've got a big platform, but it's interesting because so many people still believe this virus is real. A pandemic. It's like, wake up.
You're slowly boiling frogs, and you're normalizing pathology, and you're evoking a snitch nation. We're paying people now. Facebook is paying people to stay off of Facebook conveniently till after the elections.
So, I just wanted to quickly talk about what is happening in Australia, because so far we've seen 2 videos of people pulled from their homes. One physically after their door was barricaded down. One, a pregnant woman who was supposed to get a sonogram. And now, even more frightening, I've seen a woman who basically doesn't comply for 20 seconds being pulled out of her car. Sam, you asked, what are these police thinking? And I'm thinking what they're thinking is we're going to lose our jobs if we don't do this. And we have to be the enforcers because, last week I talked about the fact that, the new outbreak was here, right? And everybody always talks about, oh, these mask mandates aren't a big deal in New York. They can't really fine you. It's a health department issue. Well, my small town, again, with 839 confirmed cases and 0 hospitalizations, let me say it again, 0 hospitalizations, just had a town meeting. I watched the Zoom meeting. It was incredible to me, where they're like, we need to make an ordinance so that the police can enforce this and now fine you on the street if you're not wearing a mask and 6 feet apart from somebody else. So now they have criminalized it. Now they have crossed the barrier. They've written it up. They're going to pass it this week, where if they feel like you're not wearing a mask and you're too close to another human being that you're not authorized to be with, they can now approach you and use legal force and fine you. And that to me is scary enough. You know, that's why I'm leaving this state. It's nuts. And what I've seen in Australia is even crazier, talking about anti-lockdown protests. You know, my governor in the same breath said last week that the BLM protests were not spreading the disease. There were no outbreaks after them, and they're rampant throughout my state. However, the college outbreaks were because of out-of-state students without any evidence and really just Johnny nonsense. So we're living in a very different world. You know, that's why we're calling it COVID 1984, everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important to remember with respect to Australia is that one of the reasons why the police are acting as comfortable as they are, being the psychopaths that we've been watching on television, is that they know that the public is unarmed. They took care of that a long time ago through the Port Arthur situation. So now we've got Australians that have no way to fight back against this. I'm not a big gun fan. I'm not like a Second Amendment rah, like, you know, enthusiast or anything like that. But I like the fact that I've come over the last 10 years to appreciate the fact that, thank God, we are armed, because there's got to be at least some barrier to keep. There's got to be something in the back of the cops' heads to prevent them from just opening, you know, coming into people's houses and pulling pregnant women out in front of their husbands and handcuffing them, taking them. I mean, that stuff is bad. And I'm not saying that you need to, you know, start a shootout or anything, but in the United States, the cops are very much aware that when they do stuff like that, there is at least the possibility that they could get shot when they go into somebody's house doing that. So we've watched it with Australia, and Pete correctly, I think, assesses New Zealand next. And what did we see after the shooting there? Guns being removed. We can get into, I mean, it's a topic for another time, the ins and outs of that shooting, but whatever. We see it in the United States as well. Every time there's a mass shooting, here comes instantaneously the push for gun control and gun confiscation. I would suggest that none of this is accidental, that this is what you do far in advance before you roll out an authoritarian lockstep program like they're rolling out in Australia. And Australia is ahead of the curve in the sense that they're disarmed for the most part, you know, and that creates, you know, this is something we need to keep an eye on because this is not stopping. I don't think any of us are naive to think that this is stopping with Australia or Victoria, you know.
No,
well, Charlie, sorry.
It's a test run. It's a test run.
In Manhattan, we don't have guns.
And exactly, I was going to say that to speak to
We're
the no
terrified.
guns.
We are being hunted in Manhattan. People don't seem to understand. The people that he let out, the people on the streets are emboldened. These are career criminals that keep going through the door. They're trying to get everyone that they can out of Manhattan. There are no cops. We are walking home in a nice neighborhood, so-called, on the Upper East Side, and 3 of our friends have gotten beat up walking home. 2, they got their shit stolen. 1, they just punched them in the face and kept running. I'm talking about Midtown East in Manhattan. You know, it took me 20 years to live in a safe neighborhood here. And now it's hell on earth. There are no cops.
Let me speak to that really quick. Because
saying, I want a gun.
Yeah.
Because they took away the guns in here. Basically, you could not get a handgun permit in the beginning of March. As soon as this popped off, I think it was mid-March, they took that away. They're now trying to dissolve the NRA through lawsuits. And what she's talking about is a very stark reality in the fact that on Labor Day alone, New York City had 37 shootings. So to bring that also to, Peter Evans talking about smart cities, New York is the test run here, man. They gave the contact tracing to Bloomberg billionaires. They gave the education to Bill and Melinda Gates. They gave the smart cities and the rest to Eric Schmidt. Exactly. Right. And just 2 weeks ago, Bezos announced, oh, you have open properties? We're going to open up 3,500 offices here. So now Bezos and his Amazon billionaires are coming in. So I see so many parallels on what is going on in Australia, going on in my home state right now.
Sure. New York City, they're putting up, I saw them the last 2 nights in the middle of the night around, like, I tend to stay up late. I saw around 2 a.m. they were putting up, Con Edison was in the middle of the street, down the street, in the middle of the night with all the lights on, putting up things that are now above the stoplights. This is not a joke. They are
5G.
Watching us.
What is it, surveillance or 5G?
Yes, I think it's both.
That's where 5G goes.
I think
that's where 5G goes. It has to be just a little bit above your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in Wuhan. It was the first smart city.
It's terrifying. And we don't have guns. My friends that have restaurants, do you know that people walk right in there and ask for their money?
Yeah.
And I keep saying to my friend, first of all, 3 of my friends had to close their restaurants. And then the guys that are hanging in there, now they want, what they want to do. Now, if you want to eat in a restaurant in Manhattan, even though we have no deaths and no basically illness in this Manhattan, at least, you have to give your name, address, phone number, and get your temperature taken at the door.
Yeah.
To eat inside a restaurant at 25%. So we're just signing up to be contact traced. And like you said before about where you are, let me tell you something. I can see somebody a mile away now who is dressed in plain clothes, takes out their camera, and is taking pictures trying to snag restaurants to get a paycheck from de Blasio. And they must have a quota, So it's just, we are under surveillance and we have no cops, none. And we have emboldened criminals and no guns and no way to protect ourselves. Anyone could kick in one of these doors. You think one of these 75-year-old doormen are going to be able to stop somebody if they kick them and go upstairs and just kick in door after door? No, it's not. We cannot live in New York City in the way it is. This is going to become a bloodbath. And it's becoming it, but it could be so much worse. And another thing, I'll let everyone go. But another thing is, like, don't let them downplay what they're doing to New York. It's real and it's terrifying, and it's on purpose. It's on purpose. And don't forget, the belly of the beast, the Lucis Trust /UN, is really the puppet master, the whole show where all of us are. So,
well, behind that, bankers. Is there an echo? Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm in Costa Rica, and I got the cops called on me because I refused to wear a face diaper, plus take my temperature assaulted at my third eye, and put chemicals on my hands. And then I went to another bank. This was in a bank, and I pretended to put Purell on my hand, and I had someone snitch me out. And I'm actually returning to Chinafornia tomorrow, supposedly, on United, which I'm having panic attacks like right now. And I tried to check into United, and I have a PCR test that shows it's negative, and I have a letter that says back in February, before I came here, because I predicted that they were going to weaponize the fever and the fever gun, that I have suffered from low-grade fever, and I wasn't able to check in automatically. And I don't know if they have a dossier on me because I'm a troublemaker. But, if you've been in touch with anyone who's had COVID-19, then you're a problem. I don't know what's going to happen at the airport, and I'm still questioning whether I should come back to Chinafornia.
Well, it's nice and hot for you with all the fires and everything. So
yeah, it'll be good when you're wearing your face diaper. Like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It's not a joke, folks. George Floyd said, "I can't breathe" 11 times before he ever got put on the ground. It's a joke. They're laughing at us.
They're laughing at us. That's what I say about Netflix putting this show on. They're laughing at us. They don't hide it. This was on purpose. I'm sorry to jump to the Netflix, but people are making a big deal about this. Isn't about Netflix. This is about the powers that be, the crazy people that are running the CFR, running the UN, running the Lucis Trust, running the Rockefeller Foundation, trying to generate our children and divide our children and take God and family and everything that is sacred to Americans and turn it upside down so that they can own our children. And like, I'm sorry to jump to there, but it's a mass insurgency of just everything evil at one time. And I keep telling people I'm in New York City scared out of my mind because I can't during the day. I'm scared. Like what? I moved here when I was 17. I'm 40, and I'm walking around thinking, "Oh my God, I've never been scared in the city till now."
It's micro-terror every day. It's terrorism, micro-terrorism. We're being terrorized on the micro level.
So what can we do? Okay, so now we're at this point, and I my big thing lately has been to kind of really zero in on the cause. On the real cause of this is that we're not running Donald Trump against Joe Biden. We're running Donald Trump against the UN / the complete and total takeover of our entire planet. And I know, I mean, all of us are on the same team when it comes to the reality of the facts that there are a handful of billionaires that really want all smart cities, that want by 2050 for all of us to live in cities completely controlled, and they're the only people that will have access to anything else. And this has been a long-term plan. And I at this point, I don't even know what to say to people anymore that are telling me they're voting for Joe Biden. I
don't know either.
They're giving away our planet. This isn't about America. This isn't about America. This is about evil. We have been convinced, I believe, that this Lucis Trust, Luciferian base UN is meant to globalize us all so we all hold hands and get along. But it's not. These people,
the game of divide and conquer.
Right. And then they think they're winning. And the truth is, I think that the media, who all belong in prison, most of them, as far as I'm concerned, but I think it's probably a couple million people that are doing the damage in America. But to the rest of the world, it looks like we're burning down at the seams, and then they're telling the rest of the world and us that Joe Biden's winning when we know that that's Kamala Harris winning, because the Obamas have been running a counter government this entire time, and they wanted Kamala. So at this point, it's not America. It's free people all over the world versus these people that have a million times played the same game, and we let them get away with it. And it's this time, are we going to again? It's the French Revolution.
You make a good point in regards to the illusion that the whole world is crumbling and we're living in this just chaos, because the same thing happened with the height of the lockdown, right? I don't know if your experience was, but with my experiences, I had people who was listening to the show, Jim, Florentine, what's up, bud? And who were listening to the show, they were all over the world, and they were contacting me, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're in Massachusetts, you're in the East Coast, you must be in the hot spot. It must be crazy living over there." And everybody I was talking to, basically, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from, they were all saying that the news was telling them that the world was ending and that all these people were dying and hospitals were full to the max and all this stuff. But everybody that I knew was like, well, it must be somebody else experiencing this because I'm not experiencing it. So it's like they created this illusion on the news that like everybody is dying and the world is falling and all this stuff. But I know people who were working at hospitals. I know people who were nurses, people who worked at, for ambulance services, firemen, police officers who were going to calls. They were all saying the same thing. If you really talk to the people who were there, a few of them were panicked prior to all this really going down because the news kept saying there's a wave of that's going to come and it's going to overwhelm the hospitals and all that stuff. And then after a while, they realized like, oh shit, what I'm really scared of is just this wave, this hysteria that they're saying is going to happen that never came about. It never happened. So people were more afraid of just the speculation and all the things that were. And then when people talk about the second wave, that's what makes it humorous. It's like, wait, you're freaking out about the second wave? Like the first wave was completely blown out of proportion. Now you believe the second wave. And this goes back to how easily people, I mean, so much of this has become political, because if it wasn't political, how much more evidence do you need that truth is being censored, or at least alternative views are being censored? I don't want to use truth because, some people might have different information or whatnot, but at least anything that goes against the alternative or the mainstream narrative, anything that's alternative, even though in our typical lives, it's completely normal to go to a different doctor, get a second opinion. You can get a second opinion. That's completely acceptable. It's normal. But in regards to this, no, whatever Dr. Fauci says goes. If somebody else with a PhD who's been studying medicine has a different perspective, like Dr. Jensen, who is 2016 physician of the year in Minnesota, like his opinion doesn't matter. He's pseudoscience. It's like, no, he studies medicine. He's looking at the same information, coming up with a different conclusion, just like a lot of these doctors are going against the grain. But they decided that no, in this case, and only in this case, because if you're an athlete, you can get a second opinion, completely acceptable for doctors to have different takes on the same scenario. But in this situation, only we're deciding what truth is, and only these doctors know what's really going on. Everybody else who has a different take based on the same information is slightly different. I mean, just recently, Dr. Fauci was saying that vitamin C and vitamin D can help fighting the virus. I mean, it's in an article, but yet months ago, people were being taken down Facebook for this and taken
Not
down.
even months ago, he was talking to Matthew McConaughey, and he wouldn't even repeat the word zinc. I'm a functional medicine consultant and coach, and nobody on the COVID-19 task force has mentioned the immune system, and he wouldn't even repeat. And he actually said he did this, and he said it's all in your head. Just you can take it, but it doesn't do anything. So has he said the word immune system? The only person who's mentioned a vitamin is actually President Trump, who's talked about zinc. So, and people are still believing the Fauchster, the fucking pandemic impresario is what I call him.
I'm going to jump in here for a sec before I head off, but just very, very quickly, last week I interviewed a reporter that's in the White House, a woman called Chanel Rian, and she gave me an hour of her time. And I asked her the questions about Operation Warp Speed and what she thinks Trump's doing and the relationship with Fauci. And she was saying, she goes, you can't quote me, even though she said it. She goes, it seems that he is going to be under investigation or is under investigation for conflict of interest at the moment. And what was telling about that interview, and I just launched it yesterday on my podcast if anyone wants to listen to it. Amazing woman. And she was saying, because I said, what's the deal with vaccines and Trump, right? This Operation Warp Speed, the military. She said Trump's not anti-vaccine, but he understands that they're not completely safe. And he is looking for, don't believe everything that he says in that context. And I'll let you have a listen to it. It's a brilliant hour-long interview. And I asked her as well, I said, how come Trump doesn't talk about Bill Gates? How come no journalist ever asked him about Bill Gates? Exactly. And she explains that as well. She goes, sometimes Fauci has mentioned it, but Trump, she said, he likes to keep people in his group that don't have the same opinions, because he doesn't want yes people in there. But he also, she goes, he also keeps people in there to let them basically hang themselves with enough rope for a period of time. And it's the game the Department of Justice plays as well, is don't stop it just yet, let it play out and see who is involved in this. And I thought it was a really telling interview. And whether you believe her or not, I mean, she's with OAN Network, which could be questionable as well. But it put a lot of things back into balance for me. So, I think there's exciting things coming. But then I listened to another podcast yesterday for 2 hours about that Trump's just a plant and this and this and this. I'm like,
Well, so Can I jump in there? Because, OAN is obviously pro-Trump, but if you just look at it, the guy got crucified for talking about what? Hydroxychloroquine, which was something that not only was talked about in the medical community and then censored, but Louis Gohmert, somebody who in Congress got this, used that, the zinc, the Zithromax, the vitamin C, D, the steroid treatments that now we can talk about as well. And all of that has been censored. So I think in a sense, he knew he had to play the game. That's what Operation Warp Speed is. Notice his vaccine gets questioned in the media. We had the Moderna tests. The media is almost silent about it. We have the AstraZeneca, one person with a spinal injury. Everybody reports on it. You see, Cuomo said he doesn't know if New York is going to recommend Trump's vaccine, even if the FDA passes it. But I guarantee once it's their vaccine and not the one Trump recommends, it will be not recommended, but mandated. So I think the guy's smart. He's playing angles. I don't think he wants to mandate it. Whether or not anyone's ever going to go to prison under Bill Barr and Durham, I'm still extremely skeptical. I've been waiting for years. But I also don't think this guy is just a dupe and doesn't know what he's talking about when he's playing those games.
I've got one more thing just to add, if that's okay. And I interviewed Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who made Vaxxed last week or the week before. And I asked him the question. I said, what's the deal with Trump? Because apparently when Trump came into power, he had Robert Kennedy Jr. heading up the vaccine safety testing or committee. And then that got shelved. Yeah. Andrew Wakefield said he had 58 minutes with Trump talking about MMR, autism, the safety of vaccines. And he said he was in a room with other politicians and everybody else was looking at their phone and their watches, wanting to get out of there. He said Trump engaged with him for the full 58 minutes. And he believes, well, this is what Andrew Wakefield said. He said, if the Democrats get in, it'll be mandatory vaccine for every single American. If Trump gets in, he believes that he will offer it for people that want to take it. And for the ones that don't want to take it, he won't make it mandatory. And this is Andrew Wakefield, who I'm is a pretty big hitter. And then I interviewed a few days ago a fellow called David Martin, who was on the pandemic indoctrination. And I asked him about Trump, and I said, when Trump says the China virus, he's not really talking about coronavirus, is he? He's actually talking about China with the Belt Road Project and everything. And he basically alluded saying Trump talks in code. That's why he keeps saying China virus, China virus, China. He's trying to let people know that this is not about a virus. So, but he still has to play the game. So really interesting stuff, and I'll release that podcast, both of those this week. So
President Trump has gone on record as far as 2012. He arguably has a vaccine-injured child, and we who fight for vaccine safety and spread information know this and collect this like seeds. So we know that he knows, and whether he's playing 5D chess, whether this is all political theater, but there's no question that he knows the dangers of vaccines. And Marla Maples, Charlene Bollinger has spoken to President Trump, and Marla Maples, people in my community speak to her, and yeah, he knows the dangers of vaccines, but he has to play the game.
Well,
that's what we can hope.
Del Bigtree I think it was on this show last time he was on, he talked about how he feels like he's almost messing with people, because he's like, oh yeah, we're going to give everybody the vaccine and we'll give all the doctors the vaccine first, and it's like, it was almost like he's kind of like, like wink, wink. Yeah, I'm for the vaccine. You guys want to push it. How about you guys get it first? So I think stuff like that, it's weird because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And there's so many people influencing what's going on. There's so many, big pharma. There's so many things going on that it really makes it hard to know what he can and cannot say. We could easily look at the situation and be like, he can't do certain things because of this person. But, we also be attempting to mold him to be out this hero that maybe he's not. We don't know, So, the Bill Gates thing, I don't know if you guys ever saw the clip of Bill Gates talking about meeting with Trump about vaccines.
Yes.
And that was really interesting because he talks about how Trump, we couldn't hear you, Sam.
Sorry, dumb, don't do that dumb or something like that, whatever he said about
yeah. And he was talking about how Trump talked to Kennedy about vaccines, and then he's like, oh no, there's no health issues with vaccines or whatnot, and kind of made Trump sound like he was a dummy or whatnot. But during one of the debates, I don't know if you guys remember, but he actually brought it up with that doctor that he was running against, doctor the black guy, what's his name,
Carson.
Yeah.
Ben Carson
brought it up, yeah, and they were trying to make Trump look dumb by bringing it up. It's like, hey, Dr. Carson, what do you think about Trump questioning the safety of vaccines? And then I think little did they know, Carson was actually pretty reasonable in regards to his answer and said, well, the safety thing, I don't know, but Trump's like, oh, I'm just basically concerned about how many you're giving. I think there's something there. And Carson's like, yeah, I kind of agree with him that, there is some concerns about, how many they're getting all at once and all this stuff. I mean, it's silly. They tell you to wash your hands before you touch a newborn. They tell you if you're sick, don't go see a newborn, but it's completely okay to inject them. Like,
right.
It doesn't make any logical sense. Even if you're just a complete idiot in regards to like science and immune systems and nutrition, like just think of it logically. I've said this over and over again. If I give every single kid in the world peanut butter, some are gonna die. It doesn't mean that peanut butter is the most dangerous thing in the world, but it means that everybody or a lot of people react to the same thing differently. So if we give everybody the exact same cocktail, if we give every single kid the flu vaccine, we give every kid, there's going to be some people who have health issues, are going to have some neurological issues, or even die, and that's been the case. So it's not unscientific to say that. It's actually unscientific to say you give every single kid the exact same vaccine, the exact same cocktail of ingredients, and they're all going to have the exact same reaction to it. That's unscientific. As you can tell, I get worked up a little bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, pharmacia means sorcery. If you take a look at, you're giving a child that's less than 24 hours and you're giving them a hep shot, and what's in this?
A gay party drug.
Yeah, exactly. You're taking pharmacy. Just imagine Bill Gates with like a witch's brew. It's like, oh, we'll take some fetal tissue that we've grown the virus on as a substrate, and some aluminum and some mercury, and then we're going to put it back into the baby. Like, it's just completely fucked up. And this is scientism. It has nothing to do with science. And herd immunity never originally had anything to do with vaccines. In the 30s and 40s, they introduced vaccines into the theory. And I hope that people will, the big pharma will be happy with the people who are going to run to get this RNA vaccine that's never been tested on humans, that's going to genetically modify people.
Well, some interesting stuff just over the last 2 weeks. I've interviewed a few different people. Andreas Kalka, if you've heard of him, he's doing amazing research on chlorine dioxide at the moment, MMS. So he left me a message the other day saying that they've treated 17,000 people with coronavirus and had success. This is in Bolivia, I think, and he's got 17 different countries working with this. Professor Mark Cohen in Victoria released a paper recently talking about how heat can be very, very powerful with coronaviruses as well. So he's released a paper on that, and you can listen to that on my podcast. I spoke with Niraj Naik 2 days ago, and he has soma breath, and him and Wim Hof were talking last week, and what they've worked out is their form of breath work acts like hydroxychloroquine when they do it in a certain method, and they're releasing something very shortly about this as well. And then I also, 2 weeks ago, I interviewed a guy called Dr. Isaac Golden, who's regarded as one of the leading experts on homeopathy immunization. He's a fellow in Victoria as well, and he was talking about they've already created the coronavirus, if you believe in the germ theory or terrain theory, and that possibly it's somewhere in between, or two realities can exist at once. But he's got homeopathics for that as well. It's really, really interesting, all of these different, I guess, solutions that are popping up, and most of them are free. And sunlight, as we know, is the best vaccine in the world. So I think this is a really important time in human history where we're seeing, and I've said this before, potentially if they do release a vaccine mandatory, and Victoria, I think, will be the first place, or New Zealand will be the first place, I think we're going to see the death and destruction, the suffering and the pain of a lot of people, and that might actually be the catalyst for other people that still are stuck in their mummy and daddy, government and farmer is going to save us mentality, where they'll actually see the abuse of that system. And I hope it doesn't go down that path, that we have to witness that and people suffer. But understanding human beings and studying them, we realize, as I said earlier, perhaps we need to be in pain for us to change, because the preventative model is not... We haven't worked that out as a population just yet. So I don't mean to laugh about this, but I think everything is being exposed at the moment. Everything is coming to a point where I think we're going to tip over into a new way of thinking, and these old systems are going to crumble under their bullshit, so to speak. So
I totally agree with that.
Concerned, frightened, ecstatic, all of the emotions every single day. So, and I just want to thank everybody for having me on. I'm going to have to run, and it's been a pleasure. And sorry if I've spoken too much today. Peace and love, everyone.
Thank you, Paul. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete.